Hello and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. So we're up to Ravnica Allegiance. This is the 80th Magic expansion. It was released on January the 25th, 2019. Officially, it's not part of a block. However, it is part of a series of 3 that they're all set on the same world. So I suppose you could say, when is a block not a block? When it's the Guilds of Ravnica block. It's my understanding that it was unofficially called the Guilds of Ravnica block. So I'm just going to scroll through this so we can get a feel for the artwork. So yeah, we're getting quite up to date. It's 2019, or relatively speaking, in these throwback episodes. I think I've got about another 9 of these to go before I catch up with myself and get to a point where I've already done set musings for sets which I did as the sets came out. So basically the remaining throwbacks will take me up to and include Strixhaven, and then from that point onwards I would have already done set musings for the newer sets, and then going forward, once we get to that point, I'll obviously be doing set musings for new sets as they come out, and then for weeks where that's not the case, I'll be doing something else in a similar vein, I imagine. Musing over something. So yeah, I'm keen to do more like nostalgia videos, although they may have a little bit more randomness to them in terms of what I pick to do. Has crossed my mind actually to maybe do some of the supplemental sets. That's something I'm considering. So yeah, something like the Masters set, something along those lines. But we'll see. Nothing's set in stone at the moment. I'm going to see when I get there, which is 9 to 10 weeks from now. So as I'm scrolling through and rambling here, things to look out for is Adapt, Addendum, Afterlife, Riot and Spectacle. They're the keywords, ability words for the set. There's 259 cards in the set. There are 111 commons, 80 uncommons, 53 rares, 15 mythic rares. There's 5 basic lands which aren't, you'll see in a moment, aren't part of the sort of main set, whatever you want to call it. So that's the cards that are included in the boosters. There's also 8 cuts from the Planeswalker decks and a buy a box promo. So as with the other set, in terms of the basic lands, those were only available in the Planeswalker decks, and the bundle and the slot in the booster packs where a basic land would normally be was taken up by the guild gates. And as in the previous set, the guild gate, in terms of the set as a whole, takes up 2 common slots, and the reason why that is there's 2 different pieces of artwork for each guild gate. Now again, as we're scrolling through, you can see this is very clearly 2 colours for the different guilds, and in here we had Azorius, Rakdos, Gruul, Orzhov, Simic. So that's white blue for Azorius, that's black red for Rakdos, Gruul is red green, Orzhov white black, and Simic is green blue. And you're probably going to notice there's a lot of cycles, things like the lockets, and again the guild gates, where that need to fix for mana. Oh, and of course these is specifically aimed at the 2 colours. and I really hope, I haven't looked through yet because I normally sort my cards after I've done this episode and before obviously I shoot the Friday artwork video, but I do hope I've got one piece of each artwork for the for those lands. I'm sure I have. Okay, so these are the ones that where the number's above the number in the boosters. So 259, you can see. So here's the land, the basic land, and then here's the cards from the Planeswalker decks. And it'd be interesting to see this time round whether, when you look at the set as a whole, because when I do the slicing, I'm including everything, both in booster and in Planeswalker deck. Whether we get, one of each of the Planeswalkers, so two of the same Planeswalker, if you like, but just slightly different variants, or not. Because there has been said, well, that isn't the case. 21 reprints. Again, these are going to be sort of furnished with artwork that's themed appropriately for the set. And we have 242 new cards in the set. In terms of breaking down the different numbers of colour across the set, so we have 7 cards where they're completely colourless. There's no colourless identity in the casting cost and the card as a whole. And you can see, as I think I point out quite a bit here, that's not to say there might not be some mention of colour in some way. So here we've got one that adds any manner of colour. Also, you'll notice that there's cards that are caring about multicoloured cards, which we've seen before in this type of set. On this plane. Those cards where there's the casting cost is colourless, but there's a colour identity in the rules text. They're all the lockets. There's just 5 of those, one for each of the 2 colours. Totally monocolour cards. We've got 146 of those. We have a number of cards where there is 7, a number I say 7, where you've got one colour in the casting cost and a different colour in an activation cost. The odd one out here is this, where it does have both the casting cost colour and another colour. But all the others you can see, so we've got white blue, white black, blue white, black red, red green and green blue. And then 85 2-colour cards, and you can see also we have these cards here. So you've got dispose, tap target creature, draw a card, and deploy. Create 2 1/1 colours stop to artifact creature tokens with flying. Then you gain 1 life for each creature you control. So you have a choice there about what you can do. So yeah, a modal spell, I suppose, slightly different than what you might normally see, in that there's a modality here, but it's tied to, there's a difference in the casting cost. Whereas a lot of modal spells you see, which aren't split like this, you're paying a casting cost and then you're choosing Whereas here, when you choose, obviously you're going to get slightly different casting costs. But yeah, it's interesting to see them return to these split cards. And these were first introduced, I understand, in the invasion block. But there they were, each half was a different colour. And they were also in dissension as well. And of course, remember these, and I think I misspoke last week about these. I always get these confused with cards which have fuse on them. And the way they work is slightly different than, say, the fuse cards. And you have to choose as well. Something else I didn't make clear in the previous episode. So you don't get to do both with those. You do with the fuse if you want to, but not with those ones. Sphinx of the Guild Pact is our only, like, you know, and it's interesting. It's all colours, so it's interesting to see wording overriding the colour identity, where you'd normally see that because of something either in the casting cost or in an activation cost here. And I suppose you could see this is like the antithesis of devoid. So in white, what sort of creatures are we seeing in terms of creature types? So we've got angels, elephant soldiers, Pegasus, human soldier. So lots of soldiers and warriors. Oh, cats and spirits and birds. And for the two-colour stuff, yeah. So yeah, lots of humans, knights and soldiers with a nice smattering of spirits. Oh. White, black vampires, we'll have to see. And of course this will crop up in everyone because it's all colours. In blue, merfolk. That's fairy rogue there. So a number of rogues. Octopus, homunculus. Good old Vidalcan wizard. Because of the overlap with the two colours, obviously we're going to see some of these in previous slices, or slices yet to come. Shark toe crab, fish, octopus, crab. Yeah, we were getting some pretty weird hybrids here. Okay, in black we've got vampires. Oh, there's a crocodile. Imp, human rogue, beast, spirit, zombie. Just seeing if anything particular. I wouldn't say we've got. Well, maybe there's 3 vampires there, but again, we're seeing humans across all colours here, which is pretty normal, I suppose, in magic. But I don't see anything sort of competing so much for presence in a certain colour with that. So black red human shaman here. Oh, there's a black red demon. It's all white black stuff, and Sphinx again. Elementals, oh yes. You know I like some elemental action. Elementals and artifacts, that's where it's at as far as I'm concerned. Goblin Shaman. We got these Viashino. There's a smattering of goblins there. Again, overlap with other colours, so we're seeing some stuff we've seen already. Got some of the red-green stuff down the bottom here, though. Green, here we go. Beasts and ooze. It's always nice when a ooze crops up as well. Elf, druid. Human lizard warrior. Okay. A frog snake. And a troll frog warrior. Wow, okay. Elf ooze wizard. This is jellyfish hydra beast. Okay, this definitely brings a smile to my face. So again here, and it's a little bit deceiving. I probably should have thought this through. Let's sort of put to one side that the split cards in terms of these big spells. So I wonder if I can just do this. Let's just screen out those. Am I doing this? There we go. It's a bit easier to see now without the splits there. Let's just sort that by mana value as well. So you can see going from 7 up to 8. So not a lot of spread on the big spells. And we've got what, black, red, white, blue, white, black, multicolour, a couple of greens, and colourless as well, Gate Colossus. Just to show you, and I know these probably don't really count because this is a combined mana, then you'd only be casting one part. But those were the split cards that were there. So 27 cards have the Azorius watermark in them. And what I've been doing is, while we're looking through these, also pointing out this particular keyword ability for that. So for Azorius it was addendum. And if we look at this one, if you cast this spell during your main phase, that creature gains flying until end of turn. So what you've got here, and if we look at another one, we can start to see the template for this. So the first bit, it looks the same all the way through. So if you cast this spell during your main phase, and I think that's the same for all the addendum cards, you get something. So instead scry 3. So you get something if you don't, but if you do, then you get something else. So yeah, hence the term addendum. Makes perfect sense. Those watermarked as Rakdos, the keyword or ability word was spectacle. So you may cast this spell for its spectacle cost, and you can see there's a cost there, rather than its mana cost, if an opponent lost life this turn. So yeah, if an opponent lost life, then yeah, you get the opportunity to cast it for less. And there are 28 of those. Then we have the Gruul clan, or the guild. And that's Riot. So this creature enters the battlefield with your choice of +1/+1 counter or haste. And that's the same there all the way through. Anything with Riot on it, that's what it is. So choice between +1/+1 counters or haste. And no doubt with all of these, one of the interesting things with stuff like that and abilities, keywords abilities, that where something triggers, something happens, is there other interesting synergies within the set which work well with that particular thing. Orzhov, so we've got the Orzhov watermark here, you can see 24 of those cards, and within there, because not all of the watermark cards have the ability of the guild, but within there are a number of cards you can see which have afterlife. So that's the specific one for the guild, and you can see the template for that. When this creature dies, create 2/1/1 white and black spirit creature tokens with flying. So the number is of the tokens is tied to this afterlife number. So afterlife 1, it's 1, afterlife 2, it's 2, and so on. I don't know what the maximum here is. So yeah, afterlife n, you get n tokens. So yeah, there's 3 there. And then we've got Simic watermarked cards. So if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put 2/1/1 counters on it. And that's adapt something, but you can see in order to adapt there is a cost involved. So this one's 2 and a green, and you get to adapt 2. So that's 2 +1/+1 counters if there are no +1/+1 counters on it. And this one is adapt 4, but it's a much higher cost, 4 and 2 green, but same thing, you just get more, you get 4 counters. And if you're really aware of the different themes and mechanics through Magic's history in terms of the guild focus sets that we've seen over the years, the return to Ravnica and the original, you'll probably see how there are similarities with what's been before, albeit with a twist to it. So let's move on to the cycles. We've got a cycle of mythic rares. There's 5 mythic rare creatures, 1 for each colour. That's a pretty simple cycle. We have 5 guild leaders. So these are all mythic rares. They're multicoloured, but they can either be a creature or planeswalker. And each of these are aligned to a guild and is their leader. Guilds aligned with Nicol Bolas have a planeswalker as their leaders. Guild aligned against Nicol Bolas have a creature as their leader. So if you look, you can see there are 4 planeswalkers and just 1 creature. Along with our elf ooze wizard. Did I say, dear me, I'm misspeaking today again. I meant to say 3 and 2. I don't know what made me think this was a planeswalker. Yeah, 3 and 2, so 3 planeswalkers, 2 creatures. we've got 5 guild champions. So these are 5 rare legendary multicolored creatures, each of whom are aligned with a guild and are a significant figure in the guild. And again, something I think I pointed out last week, just because they're guild leaders doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have the guild mechanic, and there's only one here by the look of things. But what you sometimes find is what they do have synergizes, or may synergize, or may be a variant on the guild mechanic in some way. And I'm just talking generally through these sets. We've got 5 mythic rare guild spells. So we've got, this one's got addendum. Now again, you can see that what's happening here is only 3 of them specifically mention the guild mechanic. Sorry, the guild ability. But the other 2 reflect that, you know, that the thing that the guild is doing, if you like, in some way. The themes, I suppose, might be a correct way to say that, and that theme might be reflected through the mechanic, through the ability, or might be reflected by something that synergizes with the ability. Dear me, I must be tired today. We've got cycle of guild mages. These are at uncommon. They're multicolored creatures, each of whom are aligned with the guild and have 2 activated abilities. Each ability costing at least 1 mana of that guild's colours and tapping to activate. They are named after the full title of their respective guilds. And once again, no mention specifically of an ability, but you may see how this could be synergistic within the particular guild. Okay, another cycle of 2 colour cards. These are the MMNN creatures. So we've got 5 powerful uncommon multicolored creatures, each of which cost 4 mana, 2 of each of their respective guild colours. And I think we saw this actually in the previous set, similar concept. Mechanical commons, it refers to these on the MTG wiki. 5 common multicolour spells which demonstrate the guild mechanic. Yeah, these all do mention that. So 5 common multicolored creatures with an activated ability of other guild colours. And I think I would have indirectly pointed these out when we were looking at cards which had a 1 casting cost and the activation cost was a different colour. And there's 5 of these at common that form a cycle. Another cycle at common is these hybrid creatures which have hybrid mana. So hybrid with generic, except this one which is just hybrid. Cycle of uncommon split cards. These are uncommon. And you can see 1/2 of it is using hybrid mana. And we also have a cycle at rare. Same sort of template as above, so one side is hybrid, one isn't, and the colours, are there's no weirdness in the colours. So we've seen split cards where sometimes that happens, whereas this is straight down guild lines. There's that cycle of lockets. So they're all the same, except obviously there's differences in the colours, but in terms of their basic templating, so you tap for a particular combination of guild colours, so one or the other. There are 3 mana of any colour to cast, and for this hybrid cost here, if you want, you can sack them and then draw 2 cards. So 10 guild gates because we've got 2 in each of the colours. 2 in each of the colour combinations, and there's a difference in the artwork. Yeah, I'm hoping I'll be able to find one each of those for Friday. That'd be cool. And then moving on to the Shocklands. There we go. So these are the 5 rare dual lands in guild colours, originally printed in Ravnica City of Guilds block. Each has respective basic land types and enters the battlefield tapped unless the controller pays 2 life, gets shocked. Hence the name. We got a pair here. I just wanted to include this one of these extra because of just there was a certain connection here based on tags in Scryfall, so I thought it was interesting to show it. So the actual pair is Spirit of the Spires and Windstorm Drake. So they're uncommon flying creatures. It's actually a typo in MTG Wiki there. Uncommon flying creatures that boost the power and toughness of other flying creatures when both are on the battlefield. Both become 3/4, so 1/0/1. So to say that again, that's wrong. So that's actually 2/5, and this is 4/3. Yeah, strange. Other creatures you control with flying get 0 +0 +1. Yeah, so it's other creatures. Oh, sorry. Yeah, when both are on the battlefield. So yeah, no, that is I didn't think of it that way. So yeah, when both are on the battlefield, if this is this would give this one 1 and 0. So yeah, that would make it 3/4, and this would give this one 0/1, which would make it 3/4. Yeah, I get it now. So misread there. So it's other creatures, and if they're both there, then yeah, there's an interesting pump. I included this one because when I do the search for synergy flying, there's Spire Mangler. So when Spire Mangler enters the battlefield, target creature with flying you control gets +2 +0 until end of turn. And yeah, I just thought it was an interesting. There's another pump flyer, but it's not part of that. Yeah, it's not part of that. It's not. Yeah, it's not obviously a pair. It's pairs too, but it's not. What do they call it? I'm trying to think of the term now, but it's a certain type of cycle. They get like vertical and horizontal. It's not a horizontal cycle. So 18 mythics in the set. A number of which we've seen already, because part of quite a number of these were cycles. There's our basic lands. Just one of each piece of artwork. I think I remember when I opened the bundle for these being really disappointed at the time and couldn't work out why. And obviously there was, you know, the fact that they'd moved the land out of the boosters, or the basic land out of the boosters, and therefore didn't feel compelled to commission multiple pieces of art. So we've got 12 non-basic lands, and you can see here, you know, by colour, we've got one each of the guild gates, and then these shock lands in the combinations. So the additional ones, which we haven't necessarily seen yet, or haven't specifically formed part of a cycle, are Gateway Plaza, which is this, you know, tap and then pay 1 of any colour, and then once it's untapped, then you get to benefit from the 1 mana of any colour. And then this, which is interesting, so when it enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more gates, you gain 3 life. It taps for colourless, but also you can tap and add 1 mana of any type that a gate you control could produce, so it synergizes with any gates you've got. There are 5 planeswalkers in the set, and yes, you can see here there is both a dove-in for the planeswalker decks and a dove-in for the set. For the boosters, and then a Domri for the planeswalker deck and a Domri for the boosters, and then we just have this Raya, which is a planeswalker in the set in the boosters. 8 legendaries. So there is only 1 mono-coloured legendary in here, which is the Haunt of the High Tower, or should I say legendary creature. So only 1 mono-coloured legendary creature. We've got 1 white-blue, 2 in black-red, a red-green, a white-black, and then 2 in green-blue. $141 creatures in the set. 18 enchantments. Including multicoloured ones. We have 4 auras, and you can see here they all enchant creatures. So no land enchantment, and normally you see that in green a lot, so there's none of that, or no land aura. We've got 4 artifact creatures, one of which is that Sphinx. We have 1 piece of equipment. We have 8 artifacts, which include those lockets. So the remaining ones are the Glass of the Guild Pact, Scrabbling Claws, and Tome of the Guild Pact. This is interesting. So this is a 5 mana rock with this additional whenever you cast a multicoloured spell, draw a card. So we've seen a few cards here which reference multicoloured. And we have 50 instants in the set. That's a lot of instants. So a lot of instants, a lot of instant speed utility. And you can see we've got, you know, some of these have the guild watermarks on them, and you know, you see that we have the guild ability here. I'm just scrolling through, you know, obviously we're seeing the usual things we see at instant speed beyond the fact that we have, things stapled together here. Now you notice in some colours we don't see the guild abilities. I've not really pointed these out before. These are story spotlights, so the cards tied to the storyline of the set in some way, and they're marked with a certain watermark in that case, and then they actually say down here. But then when we get onto the two colour cards a bit further down, you can obviously see these do have the watermarks on them, and you're benefiting from the sort of utility that you see when you have an overlap of two colours on a card. But I'm just trying to see, and it's always difficult when they're side on like that, whether any specifically reference the relevant guild keyword abilities. It does seem to be mainly the addendum, doesn't it? I think. So blue-white, yeah. Sorceries, what we got? 30 for this. Okay. There's quite a few in blue there. Some interesting stuff here. There's our sorcery speed removal in black. 5 and a black, destroy target creature. So it seems a bit overcosted for that, but consigned to the pit deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. Okay. So you get destruction and shock. Oh, there's our land destruction. What cost are we looking at for sorcery burn here? There's spectacle as well. So there's our 3 damage target creature spell for 1 and a red. It's interesting because the destroy target land, you also get to scry. Oh, there's our land tutoring in green. I was curious where the white-black stuff was paired up with life gain. So back to the set as a whole. Yeah, again here we're seeing a much more depth in the artwork, aren't we? Everything seems to have much more of an enhanced 3-dimensional quality to it than like really earlier artwork. Not saying it wasn't a thing before, but I'm definitely seeing more cards that have that. So, most expensive card in the set, Smothering Tithe. You can see it's actually been reprinted in Double Masters. It's 24.46 in Ravnica Allegiance. So whenever an opponent draws a card, that player must play 2. If the player doesn't, you create a colourless target, a treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any colour. Oh, yeah. Shocklands, well, no surprise there. Yeah, those were also reprinted in Gatecrash as well. So Dissension, Gatecrash, well, this one was. Because again, remember the way they broke down the guilds was different in different blocks and sets that have featured these, depending on like the way they decided to combine the colours across multiple sets to cover all of like 10 guilds. Yeah, see, they're still just below $20. Then we've got this Guardian project, which clocks in at 12. So clearly, and you see this all the time, some colour combinations for, in this case, Shocklands, they're more desirable than other colour combinations, and so therefore more expensive. But also, interestingly, you can see on here, is there a, or maybe there isn't some, sometimes there's also a disparity in the frequency of the reprints, based on what sets they were reprinted in and whether they were fixing for all 10 colours or just 5 or fewer or whatever. So I'm not sure whether with these particular non-basic lands, these shock lands, whether that also factors in as well. Yeah, so now we're just getting up to above $10 with these Stomping Grounds. Yeah, just hovering above 10. Godless Shrine, same. And then Hydroid Crasis is where we drop below 10. So there's a sudden drop down to 5. And we're seeing a lot of the legendary creatures here, and sort of next on the popularity list or next on the price list, however you want to look at it. Rhythm of the Wild. It's also interesting to see which ones were reprinted in Commander products as well later on. So, while we're talking about Commander products, EDH Rec ranking for the new cards. So Smothering Tithe, Rhythm of the Wild, Growth Spiral, Guardian Project, Bedevil, Unbreakable Formation, Incubation Druid, Wilderness Reclamation are the sort of top 8 in terms of numbers that crop up in decks on EDH Rec. If we look at the reprints, you'll be not surprised to see the Shocklands bubbling to the top. Then we've got things like Mortify and the Guild Gates. And Gateway Plaza. It'll be interesting to see how far this is down when we look at the set as a whole. So we've got Smothering Tithe, then the 5 reprints, the Shocklands. Then we have Rhythm of the Wild, Growth Spiral, Bedevil, Mortify. So cards that were first printed in this set. And then the Guild Gates, and quite far down is Gateway Plaza, but above Vindictive Vampire. So in terms of the order of legendaries against the EDH Rec ranking, we've got Teysa, then Lavinia, Judith, Rakdos, the Showstopper, Haunt of the High Tower, Prime Speaker, Vanifar, Zigana, and Nikia. So before we take a look at what of these I chose for my Commander Durdle episode, let's just do a bit of a an overview of other stuff that was around at the when the set released, in terms of stuff that was not part of the boosters but was aligned with the set as supplemental products. Now, we've spoken about the pre-constructed Planeswalker decks, so we've got Dovin and Domri, so white, blue, red, green. If we sort of zoom into those Planeswalker decks a bit more, there we have, you can sort of see the mana fixing's pretty straightforward. We just got the guild gates, and then we've got 4 exclusive cards. Those are the ones that are above, are in the collector's numbers 265 and above, and then we've got 2 additional rares. So in total we have 3 rares and a mythic in that deck, and then for Domri, same thing with the mana base in terms of pretty straightforward and cheap fixing. Then we've got here again a rare and a mythic in the exclusive cards, and then we've got a couple of additional rares here. I'm just going to check that cutoff there. What was it? It was, 259. Yeah, because in front of these collector's numbers was the basic lands. But also there were guild kits. There were 5 of them. So these were the remaining 5. So basically they're guild kits, and they released 3 weeks after the set. And so they make up the remaining 5 versus the 5 we already saw in the previous set. 60 card precons, and they're flavoured around one of the particular guilds. They combine cards from every Ravnica set so far. The reprints obviously won't be standard legal at the time, or wouldn't have been standard legal at the time. And they had a guild pin, a guild sticker, and a spin down life counter, and mission instructions. And they've got the legendary card frame, which we've spoken about on several sets so far. And this weird expansion symbol, which is a miniature of the corresponding guild symbol. And some rather nice basic lands, I understand. Anybody with any sense probably would have kept back these guild kits. Might even have all 10 to do for some, unboxing in the future. You never know. Could be a thing. Just how far in the future is the question. We did have a Deck Builder's Toolkit still, so this was still a thing. But at this point, I'd sort of lost interest a little bit with them. I think I might have still been buying them, but there was the random element was because of the booster packs, with which there were 4, but the actual rest of the contents was 100 basic lands and 125 other fixed cards, of which 20 were also the guild gates. And it's not going to come up on here. It's difficult to because it just shows the most recent ones when you do a hover over. These would have been also the basic lands, I suppose, from the set. So what you're getting is, archetypes around a specific colour or colour combination in here. You get all the lockets, all the guild gates, and then certain cards from certain things. Not many rare. Well, I suppose you could argue at least they were putting rares in the actual non-booster bit, but there were just 5 there, because if you remember the original kits, both the fixed and the semi-random element were all just uncommons and commons, and the only rares you saw were in the 4 boosters. So the booster packs: Dominaria, Core Set, Guilds of Ravnica, and Ravnica Allegiance. And the Mythic Edition as well, which I didn't forget about. So these here. So the Mythic Edition Special Ravnica Allegiance Draft Set Booster Box. Product became available on Hasbro's eBay store. $249.99. Okay. 12,000 units. These masterpiece boosters and contain 1 of 8 full masterpieces. And as I brought up quickly there, those were the cards. And yeah, spoiler alert there, next week's ones, I think. So, what have we got in the soon-to-be recorded Commander Durdle episode? So it's going to be Teysa Karlov here, and I'll go through this obviously when I do the episode, but you can probably spot I've kept it pretty lean in terms of the seed at this point. And Teysa doesn't specifically reference one of the guild abilities, but what's interesting is it has this lifelink synergy here, where it gives creature tokens you control vigilance and lifelink, and if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So yeah, you're getting interesting interactions with cards that generate tokens, and through a triggered ability, and so therefore they're triggering twice. But no doubt when we run this against the algorithm, we'll probably come up with other interesting triggered abilities on permanents that trigger a second time, and not just related to, say, generating tokens, creature tokens, but maybe other things here that are going to buff tokens in some way. I'm always particularly interested in anything that generates, say, like 2 color tokens, and then having tokens, cards in play which, will buff 2 color stuff. I'm thinking about certain cards from, was it Lorwyn era blocks? So those 2 mini blocks, there's at least one card I can think which does that. So it'd be interesting to see if we get stuff pulled up there. But again, I suppose it just depends on what sort of 2 color cards in white black that get suggested, and creatures specifically I'm thinking of. So there we have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this next episode of Set Musings. Interesting to note, we're up to the 80th expansion in Magic. Wow, that's a lot of expansions. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.